everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pilzel.
And today we're going to talk about Star Trek Into Darkness. Directed by J.J. Abrams, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto. I'm never sure how you say that, actually.
Sounds good to me. Simon
Pegg, Carl Urban, Zoe Saldana, Benedict Cumberbatch, Peter Weller, who was RoboCop, and some other people.
Oh, that's right. I was pretty delayed in seeing this. I didn't see it in the theater, unfortunately. You saw it twice?
I did. I saw it opening night, which was on it was like a Wednesday night. I guess its official release was on a Thursday or something strange like that, because I saw it wasn't a midnight showing, but it was like a 9 p.m. showing on a Wednesday night. And then I saw it again just because I could.
Because of your movie pass, right?
Yeah, the first time I saw it, I didn't use the movie pass, so I was able to see it with the movie pass, and so I used it.
That's right, I forgot you could only use it on a movie once.
Yeah, you can only see each movie one time, but it's totally worth it.
And I'm sure you see a lot more movies than you normally would have.
Absolutely. Even movies that I'm mildly interested about, I usually find the time to go see because I can. It's not costing me anything really. And this was one of them. Although I was very interested in seeing this movie. I really enjoyed the first one. I thought that I remember when the casting came out with the first one, I was really worried because I had really kind of grown to be a Star Trek fan. And when they announced that John Cho and Simon Pegg and Carl Urban were all going to be in it, I was thinking they were just getting a lot of stars. They weren't really getting people who could play these characters well. I was kind of hoping they'd find maybe a couple more unknown people to do it. Mm-hmm. Like Chris Pine was fairly unknown at the time.
Right.
And Zachary Quinto was, known for Heroes at least, but he was fairly unknown as well. And so I was just worried that it wasn't going to be that great. And then the first trailer came out and I was like, well, at least it looks exciting.
Yeah.
And then I saw the movie and I just thought the casting was perfect. Like every single actor nailed that role perfectly. I thought it was great.
I think the oddest one for me, which I didn't know most of them, but was Simon Pegg as Scotty. Now, granted, at the time, I had never even really watched Star Trek.
Right.
So I guess it wasn't until after I started watching the show and went back and watched the movie about how I was more interested in seeing how close and how, good Simon Pegg had done. Which he did great.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. He did a great job.
I have a drink here, and it actually has a printed image of Scotty from the original series.
Is he your favorite character?
No.
Who is your favorite?
I'd say Kirk is my favorite.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same for me. I'd probably go with Kirk.
And I'm not basing that off the movies, actually. That's based off the original series. For the movie, it's hard to say. I think Kirk might be my favorite in the movies too.
Kirk's just fun to watch. He's kind of almost a little too sure of himself, and
you never know what he's going to say.
Right. And in this movie, it kind of catches up with him too. Like he's obviously very sure of himself, especially in the beginning of the movie, and then later on, he starts to really kind of stumble and not know. Mm-hmm. He even says at some point, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do."
Right. That was a good line.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I only know what I can do.
Right. Yeah. If you haven't seen Star Trek II, by the way, it's out on DVD now. You can check it out. But I definitely recommend checking it out before listening to the podcast because we're going to talk about the whole movie and spoilers will abound, especially with this film. So anyway, I was real excited to see this movie because I was such a fan of the original. And I had just become such a Star Trek fan in general.
Me too. After the original, the J.J. Abrams original.
Yeah.
And before this movie came out, I became Actually, it was last summer. I just almost became obsessed with Star Trek. I'm currently about halfway through The Next Generation, and I'm loving that too. But yeah, before I saw the Man of Steel trailer, or teaser even. No, I take that back. Even after the teaser, I think it was the second Man of Steel trailer that made me say, okay, I think I'm more excited about Man of Steel than Star Trek. Before that, Star Trek was my number one movie for this year.
Did it live up to your expectations?
I hold it very close to Man of Steel, yes.
Is Man of Steel your number one movie of the year so far?
Yes.
I gotcha.
But I haven't seen near as much as you.
Sure.
What about you? What's yours?
My Man of Steel aside, because I don't really know exactly where that falls, my favorite movie of the year is Mud with Matthew McConaughey.
I want to see that.
It's really good. I really, really enjoyed that movie. I liked this movie a lot. It's a lot of fun. I think I just rewatched it yesterday, and I think I actually enjoyed it more this time around than I did the second time I saw it in theaters. And maybe that's because I saw it so close to I saw it probably on a Wednesday, and I probably saw it again on a Friday or something. I saw it so close together. But yeah, I don't think it quite lives up to the first movie in my mind. The first movie just knocked me off my feet. I think I saw it like 5 or 6 times in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Something ridiculous. And this one just didn't have this. It's really good, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have the same magic as the first one did.
See, I think I'm the opposite. But it was interesting. The original, or J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek was interesting to me because when I first saw it, it was later. I did get to see it in the theater, but it had been out for a while, and there had been a lot of talk about it, and everyone was just talking about how great it was. And I think I went in with really high expectations.
Right.
I enjoyed it, but I was not blown away. Then I saw it again after it was released on DVD, and I liked it better.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, last summer I watched the entire original series, and then I watched J.J. Abrams' movie again, and I think I liked it more that time than the other 2 times.
When you rewatched it?
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with it the third time.
Nice. It's just such a fun story, that first one, and it's just so... the second one has a little bit of this, but it's just like, it's almost nonstop. Like this moment happens and it leads directly into this next action sequence that happens, and then but while also having like a really good story and where these characters kind of come together and everything for the first time. And I think that was also kind of the magic of the first movie was, even though we know these characters so well, it was really fun seeing them meet for the first time. It was fun seeing them, especially like Kirk and Spock, not be friends at first, practically enemies, and then becoming friends in the end and everything. It was just fun.
Yeah, but I think even in the end of Star Trek, they still had a bit of a friction going on.
I'm sure there was a little bit of one, and there was definitely one at the beginning of this film.
You think so?
Well, absolutely. After Kirk saves Spock's life, and then Spock writes the report, they get pretty upset with each other.
Yeah, but I think that's just because of the way Kirk handled it. I don't think that was necessarily a personal thing going on, which I felt like was more of the original.
But you did feel that at the end of the first movie?
Yeah, because like, I don't know. I remember when Leonard Nimoy says, you'll become my friend and everything. And if I'm not mistaken, you're right. I think they do try to show that they're kind of coming to terms with each other. Mm-hmm. But it just didn't convince me because it was like they hated each other so much through that movie.
Well, I didn't get that. I mean, at the very, very end, Spock shows up and asks, if he can be the first officer, and Kirk says it would be an honor. and it seems like they've made up. And they're cool with each other.
I need to watch it a fourth time.
You're gonna have to watch it again.
Well, I mean, I've wanted to anyway. So
it seems like they've made up. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of.
I just felt like in this movie, I really felt their friendship. You could tell.
Later on, like I really think it started off, and it seemed like there was a lot of. I mean, maybe in the very beginning, after they save that planet from destruction, where he stops the volcano from exploding, it shows him back on Earth, and Pike has called them into their office, and Kirk is talking to Spock about this has got to be the 5-year mission. He's giving us the 5-year mission, and that scene they did kind of feel buddy. But even when he was rescuing Spock was upset with Kirk. And then when the report comes out and he finds out that Kirk finds out that Spock has written the report that has essentially demoted him, he's not very happy with Spock at that point. So I feel like there's some friction in the friendship, for a little while. But then in the end, they ultimately know that they are friends. But we can get there when we get to that part of the movie.
I think, I do remember the scene with the Admiral Pike, and they were definitely bickering.
Oh, absolutely.
But like I said,
it might have been more so on Kirk's end than Spock's. Spock did what he thought was necessary, what he thought was the right thing to do. He wrote a report. He didn't really even see the wrong in it.
Right.
And Kirk was the one that was more upset about it than Spock. But I think maybe Spock kind of takes some of the jabs that Kirk makes personally, even though Spock really doesn't have those emotional, moments that humans do most of the time.
Well, he has a lot in
later on, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually something. Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. So, do you want to talk about the plot?
Sure. There's a terrorist attack in London in the beginning of the film, essentially, and they find out that the man behind the attack is John Harrison, who has a beef against Starfleet. And so Kirk is sent out with his crew originally to just kill Harrison, just to shoot torpedoes at him. Harrison has gone to the planet of Kronos, which is where the Klingons live, and he's given orders to just stay on the edge of the neutral zone and shoot torpedoes at him in this uninhabited section of Kronos and just murder him. And Kirk is cool. He's for that at first until Spock talks to him and says it's not the moral thing to do. And so they ultimately decide to capture him rather than kill him. But Harrison turns out to have ulterior motives. And he's not who he says he is.
Right. I'm trying to remember. It seemed to me like there was a deeper meaning as to why Kirk wanted to go. Am I mistaken?
It's because Pike was killed.
That's right.
So after the terrorist attack, one of Starfleet's protocols is to meet, like all the top Starfleet guys, I guess, meet in this room to talk about what to do or what the next step is or something. And John Harrison knew that, so the real attack was meant to be for that room where all the Starfleet people, where all the main Starfleet people are going to be. So he blew up this library, essentially, Starfleet library, so that all these Starfleet guys would come into this room and have this meeting, and then he could attack that meeting. And in that attack, Pike is killed, and Kirk is now kind of, wanting revenge for the death of this father figure that he had.
Right.
The man who convinced him to join Starfleet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Supported him. And then he even asked Kirk to be his first hand.
Yeah, after Kirk gets demoted in the very beginning, Pike says that they're giving Pike the Enterprise back, and that he's asked for Kirk to be his first captain.
Yeah.
Right? No, first officer.
Yeah. That shocked me at first.
About that they demoted Kirk?
Yeah. very interesting about how quick that came back around. But you find out later why. Because the Admiral wanted Kirk to go.
Was there a reason that he wanted Kirk to go specifically?
I think he wanted Kirk to go because he's young and naive in his mind.
Did he have anything against Kirk personally?
No.
So it wasn't the fact that the Kirk broke the Prime Directive and it was almost a way of punishing him. It was just Kirk offered and he was like, well, here's my opportunity. I'm going to send this guy in the Enterprise out.
That's what I think.
Okay.
So Kirk goes. He's captain of the Enterprise again. Spock agrees to be the first captain. Or the first officer.
First officer, yeah.
And
so the whole team is back together. However, Scotty has a big problem with these torpedoes that the Admiral wants to use on Harrison. They won't let Scotty look at the insides of the torpedoes, so Scotty refuses to bring him aboard the Enterprise. And when Kirk tells him that he has to do it, Scotty resigns.
Now, what was the reason for Kirk being so adamant about? Was it just the fact that it was protocol?
Well, I think it was just the Admiral's orders. It was partially the Admiral's orders, and I think partially he wasn't thinking clearly because he was still so focused on getting revenge for the death of Pike.
True. Also, since he had just been reprimanded, he probably wouldn't have wanted to put up too much of stink.
That's possible. Although very shortly after that, he goes against his orders and captures Harrison rather than kill him.
True, but he's not inside the base
right.
at that point.
And the main reason that Scotty is not on the ship, that was kind of weird to me the first time I saw it, was that Scotty resigns and he's not on the Enterprise for this mission. But it turns out that it's needed because he has to be the one to locate the Admiral's ship, and he has to be the one to he's on board the Admiral's ship, and for like the whole space jump and everything.
Right.
So it's like they needed a character, they needed like an inside guy on that ship, and so they had to be Scotty.
Right. And not only that, Chekhov took his place, and he doesn't have near as much experience, and that's kind of one of the things that stranded him there.
Right. And that was something I thought was weird. You would think they would have another engineer do it, not Chekhov.
Right.
Which made me think that they didn't have a whole lot for Chekhov to do. Also, maybe they didn't want to introduce a new character for whoever this engineer could be to take Scotty's place. So they had Chekhov do it. But that was kind of a moment that I thought was a little weird too, that Chekhov is the one now being the chief engineer officer or whatever. And he kind of knows what he's doing. I wonder if there were all these other engineer people in the engineer room or whatever you want to call it, engineering center.
This guy's a moron.
Yeah, they're just like, what is going on this ship? Like, this is ridiculous.
We're not going to make it back alive.
This kid's like 18 years old and doesn't even know what he's doing. Speaking of Admiral Marcus.
Yes.
He's played by Peter Weller, and I think he's got an awesome presence about him. He was awesome as RoboCop. He actually voiced Batman in the animated Dark Knight Returns movies.
Really?
Yeah. He's really good. He's just got like, you just look at him and you see authority.
Oh, yeah.
You know? He's got like authority written all over his face, and he's just got this awesome presence.
Yeah.
So it actually made a lot of sense and worked really well, I thought, that he was kind of, I don't know if you'd call him the true villain of the movie, but he was definitely a big part of the bad guys of the movie.
Right. And I honestly didn't see that coming.
Right.
So when he popped up on the screen, that was quite a surprise for me.
Jumping back a little bit, when John Harrison attacks the Starfleet meeting area, I don't know what you would call it. Conference room, yeah. He beams himself from his ship to Kronos. And I thought that was kind of a weird plot hole, really. Because Scotty finds out what he did. And he tells Kirk, he says he's got a portable transwarp beaming device. So he can beam himself from Earth to Kronos. well, if they've got this technology, why doesn't Starfleet just copy it and get rid of starships?
Right.
And they're like, you want to go to this planet?
Right.
Boom. You're there.
Yeah.
It's like they invented this new technology that could essentially teleport you from one planet to another because they wanted John Harrison to go to Kronos. Like, why didn't he just beam... Like, I don't know. For me, it just seems weird. Why didn't they just beam from his ship to another ship and then warp to Kronos?
Right.
Because introducing this technology just, like, completely wipes out the need for starships.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been different if Scotty had been surprised about it.
He was surprised that they had... Well, he said that somebody... I don't know if it was Starfleet or who, but he said somebody stole his transwarp beaming code or whatever you want to call it. His... I don't know. But they had stolen it and made it a portable transwarp beaming device. And that's what John Harrison was using. So I don't think Harrison made it, although maybe he did. I thought somebody else made it and he had it.
It would fit if he made it.
Yeah, it would make more sense that way. But even if he did make it, Starfleet now has it.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, sweet. This will cost us... This is way cheaper than making ships. Also, everybody's out of a job because now you don't need a whole...
But
you don't need hundreds of people to operate the ship.
They can only teleport to places they have coordinates to.
So they need a ship to
go
discover...
explore, right. Which is what...
Discovered worlds.
Right, which is if they come up with a third one. That's what the...
Where no one has gone before.
Right.
That makes sense, I guess. I didn't think about that.
So, what's the girl's name with the blonde hair?
Carol.
Yeah. She's a new character.
She is. Sort of. Her character's in, I know her character's in The Wrath of Khan.
I mean for the J.J. Abrams.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Carol Marcus is not a new character to the Star Trek universe.
Right.
I gotcha.
And no one questioned her really, and of course Kirk being captain would be the one to do that, and Kirk being Kirk is totally cool
and her
with
looking
coming.
the way she looks, right? He's just
Right.
Like, welcome aboard.
She was a second science officer.
Yeah, and that's the scene that I wanted to bring up in terms of Spock. One of my favorite lines in, I believe it's Wrath of Khan, actually, is from Spock, where in Wrath of Khan, Spock is the captain of the Enterprise, and Kirk is an admiral, so he doesn't have a ship anymore. And then when stuff kind of starts happening in the movie, Spock offers Kirk the ship, and he says, you can be the captain. And Kirk at first is like, no, that's okay, it's your ship now, I don't want to step on your toes, basically. And Spock says, you're forgetting, Captain, I have no ego to bruise. And that line always sticks out with me, especially while watching this Spock, because when this second science officer comes aboard, you can really see it on Spock's face, I think. Like, I feel like it's got to be hard for an actor to play a character who has no, or who is really good at hiding his emotions, you know? Suppressing them. And I don't think he did a good job in that scene, because you really kind of see Spock's he's almost offended.
Right. Well, it's not just his facial expressions, though. It's also
what he
his
says
voice.
as well. Yeah.
But I'm wondering if Abrams is not holding really tight to that. Because
obviously not with the rest of this movie,
right.
But it's, I mean, and he is half human, so there are moments where I don't mind seeing Spock have emotion, obviously. But for something as small as the second science officer showing up, I feel like he has, that whole I have no ego to bruise thing should come into play.
Yeah, you're right.
And he shouldn't really care that much.
That's true. It's not enough to make him break.
Right.
So they go off to Kronos, and so Spock has a conversation with Kirk about it not being morally correct?
Yeah, it's actually right before Carol shows up. He's saying every person deserves
That's right.
a trial.
That's right.
No one deserves to just be, killed without a trial.
But that conversation wasn't the thing that changed Kirk's mind, was it?
Not right away. He didn't change his mind right then, but I think it's sunk in, because while he's making the announcement to his crew that they're going to Kronos, that's when he tells everyone. He looks back at Spock, and then he makes the announcement that he's going to personally. I can't remember how he words it, but he's going to take a shuttle down to Kronos to capture John Harrison. They're not going to just blow him out of the sky.
Right. I remember Kirk picks Spock and Uhura. I can't remember why. Because his statement after that is, because they're in a fight.
Right.
And he's like, are you two going to be able to work together? Or is this going to be a problem kind of thing? Why did he pick those two if they were going to be conflicting with each other?
Well, I don't know exactly why he took Spock, because other than maybe Spock is just one of the smartest people on the ship, but he took Uhura because she can speak Klingon. So she makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. Of course.
But I don't know exactly why Spock had to come, other than the fact that it's always Kirk and Spock. Like, they're in the original series, they're like always the ones that go down to the planet together. But Uhura is like,
which never made sense to me, by the way.
No, it never makes sense to me either. Why are the most important people on the ship going down to do the most dangerous missions? Right. Other than the fact that they're just obviously the stars of the show, but yeah, like, that's not how it would actually happen. The captain would stay with the ship always and send some red shirts down to do the dirty work.
Sure.
You know?
Maybe the first officer.
Maybe. But even he's like super important.
Right.
So
I mean, if the captain goes down, he's supposed to stay.
Right.
They always end up putting Scotty in control.
Yeah. Well, this time it's Sulu, and I actually thought that was kind of fun, because Sulu does eventually become a captain in the Star Trek world.
That's true.
So it was kind of cool seeing him in the chair, acting like the captain. That was fun.
Yeah, I liked that too. And he did a good job with his little message.
Yeah. And that was a nice moment from Bones, where he's like, "Remind me not to piss you off."
Yeah.
That was good. And now we're kind of getting into... they go down to Kronos, and she has a conversation with a Klingon, and he takes his helmet off. What did you think of how the Klingon looked in this movie?
I loved it.
Really? You liked it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of... I don't really care. I thought it looked fine. I'm not against it or for it or anything. I thought it was okay. But there's some people on the internet who are referring to the Klingons in this movie as blingons, because he's wearing all those like rings up his...
I gotcha.
Front...
Aside from that, though, I was really happy that they stuck pretty close to the concept of... The first time I really saw a Klingon look like that was The Next Generation.
Yeah, I mean, even if you've never seen Star Trek, I feel like most people know what a Klingon looks like just because of Worf. Like, they've seen a picture of him or something, so...
Were they in Search for Spock?
They were, yeah. Christopher Lloyd actually played one.
That's right. And they looked a lot like Worf.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first time you had ever really seen a Klingon look like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. You know what? Honestly, I don't know if I've gotten to the point in the original series where there's been any Klingons.
There is a Klingon. They don't look, if I'm not mistaken, they don't look too much different than a Vulcan or a
Romulan.
Yeah, or a Romulan.
Gotcha.
Also, before they even beam down or take the ship down, I remember thinking, this John Harrison guy has totally set this up because they're going into neutral territory right on the edge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be firing missiles at a Klingon planet. It's what he wanted. Later you find out.
He wants to start a war with the Klingons, right? Starfleet to start a war with the Klingons. Right. Sure. I think that's why... I don't know if he knew that they were going to shoot torpedoes at him or not, but I think he knew that Kronos was essentially a safe place, and if they did end up starting a war with the Klingons, it's kind of... He doesn't care, because he hates Starfleet.
Right, that's why... Well, and we didn't even know why at this point.
Right.
And I just felt like it was kind of a trap thing.
Okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You were talking about Uhura speaking Klingon.
Right. And she tries to settle, because, it's supposed to be an uninhabited area that John Harrison is in, and they quickly find out that that's not the case, which is good that they didn't shoot those torpedoes.
That's true.
Because they would have totally started a war with the Klingons then. But, although
Did the Klingons ever get an explanation what was going on?
She tells them that there's somebody hiding out on their planet, and that he's a coward, he has no honor.
But then they still get in a shootout.
They do, and that's mainly, it looks kind of like the Klingon is going to kill Uhura. He's got her by the throat, and he starts pulling out a knife, and that's when John Harrison starts firing at the Klingons. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Klingons are maybe the bad guys in the next movie.
Right,
because of the events of this film.
Exactly. That would start a war.
Right, they're definitely angry, I'm sure.
And they knew they were Earth people.
Right. I think she might have even said they were from Earth, maybe. I don't remember that, if that's true, but...
I think Earth came up in the conversation.
So, John Harrison pretty much single-handedly takes out a whole bunch of Klingons, and then surrenders himself over to Kirk and Uhura and Spock, because Sulu made a transmission to Harrison telling him to surrender or they would fire 72 torpedoes. Or he said he would fire torpedoes at them. And Harrison asked how many torpedoes they had. And I believe Spock said 72, or someone told him 72. And then he immediately surrenders.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, that's interesting.
Well, sort of. I mean, it's a large number. So
it is, but he seems more...
Yeah, there is something weird about it.
I mean, one torpedo could probably kill you. So it seems strange that he's willing to give up so easily after finding out the number of torpedoes.
There was something. He did a very quick, I surrender.
Mm-hmm. And then, giving a little clue as to who he is, Kirk, still upset about the death of Pike, starts to try to beat Harrison up. And it doesn't seem to faze Harrison at all. Doesn't even knock him down. In fact, Kirk gets more tired trying to beat him up than Harrison gets with receiving those punches.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even seem phased even at the end of it.
And I remember trying to figure it out, because at this point, I had a guess about who he was, but I wasn't sure. And I remember trying to figure it out, and this is just kind of how dumb I am. I could have sworn the first time I saw it that Kirk doesn't have blood on his face when he starts punching Harrison. And then by the end, he's like bleeding from the mouth. And I was like, every time he's punching Harrison, is he like feeling the wound in his own face or something? Like, I thought it was one of those weird things where it was like, where every time you hurt Harrison, it actually hurts Kirk. And I was like, that's bizarre. How are they connected? And then it turns out that was nothing. It was just either my imagination or something.
So he had blood before?
I'm guessing he did. I forgot to really pay attention this time around. So they capture Harrison. They put him in a holding cell on the ship, and they have a kind of a brief conversation with him. And he tells them that the torpedoes are not what they think they are, and if he doesn't believe him, to open one up. Of course, everybody thinks that's a trap, but Kirk is curious now, I think.
Especially with Scotty bringing up he couldn't scan them.
Right, it was classified what was the fuel that was in them or whatever.
Also, another thing to mention is they took a blood sample of the guy.
Right, yeah, forgot about that.
Which is really important later.
So he finds early, in the beginning of the movie when Carol makes her way onto the ship, she's hidden her identity. And you find out later that she's actually the Admiral's daughter. Her name is Carol Marcus. I think she said her name was Carol Wallace in the beginning. But she's a weapons expert or something, So she's kind of recruited to open up one of these torpedoes with the help of Bones, because he's a doctor. He's got, surgical, steady hands, which turns out to not really be the case in that scene. It's kind of a funny moment.
Yeah.
But when they open up the torpedo, it's revealed to have a human being inside. And what's so funny about that scene is the very first time I saw it, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on in the movie. I still think that the person inside that torpedo looks just like Data from The Next Generation.
I thought the same thing.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. They're crossing over Next Generation with the original series. And that was not the case at all. But it's still, even watching it this time, I was like, that totally looks like Data.
It did. That was my thought. And the thing is, unfortunately for me, a few weeks ago, on some stupid movie website, I read who John Harrison was.
Oh, so it was spoiled for you before you even got to see it?
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, we're about to reveal it ourselves. So after they find out that a person is in the vessel, they go back to Harrison, and he reveals that he's actually Khan. So this movie's not exactly a remake of Wrath of Khan, necessarily. And it's also not exactly a remake of Space Seed.
Right.
Which is the episode that Khan first
They bring elements of both to it.
They do. Which I kind of liked and kind of didn't like. I like that it had maybe a little bit more Space Seed than Wrath of Khan in it. Space Seed is a cool episode, but that was already on their 5-year mission. So this is kind of...
True.
You know, it's happening a little differently than it did. I think he was frozen, wasn't he? And they thawed him out.
Yeah,
like the crew thawed him out. Yeah,
right.
So it all kind of happens differently than it did on Space Seed.
So the Starfleet actually found Khan's crew in the movie, right?
Yes, I think it was. Marcus was the one that Admiral Marcus was the one that thawed him out.
And I'm trying to remember how Marcus threatened the crew, Khan's crew, because that's one of the things that made him so mad.
Well, also Khan was just kind of genetically engineered to. I don't know if he was engineered to wipe out other races, but that's kind of what ended up happening. To wipe out other species or races that are less superior than he was.
Right. I'm thinking. It seems like they wanted Khan to do something, and they were threatening him with destroying his crew if he didn't.
It could be. That sounds about right.
Because, he talks about doing anything for his family, which he considers
and that scene is the scene where he reveals who he is and talks about his family and talks about the reasons why he was doing things. Benedict Cumberbatch is so good in that scene.
Yeah.
He's an excellent actor. And I thought he did a really great job. And he's really good as Khan.
Yeah.
Like, he's got an awesome presence about him as well.
Yeah, I loved him as Khan. Getting a little off topic, he, a month or so ago, it was revealed that he pulled out of Guillermo del Toro's movie.
Right.
And no reason was given. They're going to start filming soon on Star Wars. Also, Superman, which I'm hoping he gets cast as Luthor. But there's apparently rumors going around that he's going to be a Sith Lord in Star Wars. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I read something the other day. I can't remember if it was confirmation from him saying that there have been talks, or if it was still a rumor. Classified as a rumor or not.
Yeah. From what I've heard, it's just a rumor right now.
Okay.
But yeah, he's awesome. I've seen an episode of... The only other thing I've seen him in is Sherlock.
I was about to say, if you haven't seen Sherlock, you got to check out Sherlock.
I've seen the first episode, and it was great. I have not gone back to watch anymore, but I really enjoyed it, and he was good in that, too.
The first season... The second season's good, too. The first season's, I think, really good. I think it's better than the second season, but he's amazing on that show. Him and Martin Freeman both are really good as Sherlock and Watson.
Which is interesting that Martin Freeman is Bilbo, and Benedict Cumberbatch is the voice of Smaug.
Right.
Whom we have yet to hear in that movie.
That's true. But I imagine he'll sound pretty cool. Benedict Cumberbatch has a cool voice.
Yeah.
Especially when he's delivering some of the lines in this movie.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I originally wanted Jeremy Irons
that'd be cool
to
too.
do the voice because of Scar.
Right. Sean Connery, and it'll just be like Dragonheart again.
Yeah. Hey, who knows? If he hadn't done the voice of that, they might have picked him. Of course, is he even doing anything now?
No, he's like officially retired. Although he's done like these these horrible looking animated movies that are supposed to be coming out. I don't know if they're straight to video or what, but he's, I think, officially kind of retired. This is the moment where Admiral Marcus really kind of reveals that he's not exactly a good guy either.
That's true.
And he's the one that actually messed with the warp core, causing it to fail, which we didn't really talk about, but causing it to fail and have them kind of stranded out in enemy space.
Yeah, so I take back what I said about Chekhov, I guess. Even if it had been Scotty, they probably.
However, if it had been Scotty, I kind of think if it had been Scotty, Scotty would have done these checks before they launched or whatever, before they left. And I think Scotty would have been able to find that problem and maybe fix it. He's pretty smart.
But then you go into, why wouldn't Admiral Marcus have done measures to get Scotty off the ship himself?
Maybe he didn't know how smart Scotty was.
Maybe he didn't. Scotty's
Although I don't
smart.
know. Or maybe he knew Scotty would resign. I doubt he was that smart, but maybe he knew Scotty would resign when they wouldn't let him see the torpedoes.
No way. That's pushing it.
Not possible.
Too much of a risk anyway.
Yeah, that is too much of a risk. I agree. I don't think Marcus knew how... obviously he didn't know he was going to resign, because then that puts Scotty down on Earth and able to go searching space coordinates to find his ship.
Right.
That's actually when Scotty is given the coordinates to go... Khan gives Kirk coordinates, which Kirk then gives those coordinates to Scotty, because he's the only one that can go check.
Kov.
Ooh!
Did you not
Check off? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I thought you said cough. And I was like, what?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was a little joke I threw in there.
That's another moment where I actually thought they were going to kind of tie in the Next Generation with this original series, because for some reason I thought that we were about to see the Borg in those coordinates.
Oh. See, I haven't gotten to the Borg in the Next Generation yet. I know about them, but...
Have you not watched any of the Next Generation movies?
Nope.
Like First Contact?
Mm-mm.
Man, that's a good movie.
You know what? It seems like I might have seen one years ago.
The Borg are in that movie.
I do remember one, because I remember Resistance is Futile.
Yeah, that's First Contact. So you've seen a movie with the Borg. You might just not remember it.
Yeah, it was so long ago.
Right. Well, anyway, it turns out I was way wrong. It's not the Borg at all. It was Admiral Marcus's giant ship.
Right.
And
wow, that was a sight.
Yeah,
and I remember you first see it, I think, through the window. I think you see. I remember seeing it and being like, "Is that a Starfleet ship?" And sure enough, and then it goes out and shows the whole thing, and it's just like, "Oh wow!"
After it's revealed that Marcus, is has no intention of letting Kirk survive. The whole plan, Marcus's original plan, was for Kirk and crew to travel to Kronos, and fire torpedoes at this Klingon homeworld, kill Harrison, and then he was gonna. I am assuming that he, because he messed with his warp core, that he was just gonna let the Klingons blow up the Enterprise.
You talking about before he shows up?
Yes.
No,
like his original plan.
I think his original plan was that he was going to blow up Khan.
No, that's what I'm saying. He said, his original plan was to send Kirk and crew out to Kronos,
right?
Fire the torpedoes at Harrison, which would have killed Harrison,
right?
But it also would have upset the Klingons, and the Klingons would have destroyed the Enterprise, right? Because the Enterprise wouldn't have been able to go anywhere. The warp core was dead, or was messed up.
Whether he had planned for the Enterprise, that's true.
Because he sabotaged the warp core.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only reason he would have done it, because there wasn't another reason, was there?
To sabotage the warp core?
Yeah.
No, yeah. He even says to Kirk at one point, he says, "I had no intention of letting you live," or something like that.
Okay.
He warps his daughter off the ship and and says something to the effect to Kirk, if it makes you feel any better, I had no intention of letting any of you live. So he was going to kill Kirk in one way or the other. Well, Kirk and crew. He was going to kill the Enterprise one way or the other. Whether it was going to be via the Klingons or if he was actually going to fly out there originally as planned and shoot him down in space.
Sure, because let's say that the Klingons didn't find out if the torpedoes did make them mad, and they didn't find out that they were, from Earth. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't have started a war. If they actually killed, or blown up the Enterprise, that would have been reason for Starfleet to go to war with the Klingons themselves.
Right.
Because that would have been an act of war. So yeah, because he wanted the war. That was the two things he wanted: Khan dead, and he wanted to start a war with the Klingons.
Do you remember why he wanted to start a war with the Klingons?
I
don't either. He said it was inevitable. I remember saying in the beginning of the movie he says it's inevitable, but I don't remember why he would want to start one. If anybody else knows, let me know.
So the Admiral gives... First of all, he now wants Khan on the ship. On his ship. He wants custody of Khan. And Kirk refuses to do this.
Because he knows that Marcus is just going to kill Khan. Right?
I think it's deeper than that. I'm trying to remember if Marcus already revealed his plan. No, he didn't. Did he?
He doesn't, and that's because I remember it's not really revealed what Marcus's real plan is until Kirk, Chekhov has fixed the warp core to an extent, and they try to warp out of there.
Yeah,
thinking that they can get away from Marcus.
I think you might be actually right. Actually, it might be because Kirk is now wanting to have John Harrison, which he now knows is Khan, be able to have a trial.
Right. And Marcus's ship is pretty amazing, and it's able to catch up to another ship in warp and fire upon that ship, which is something that no Starfleet ship has been able to do in the past.
Right. And Scotty was on his ship before the warp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scotty was on his ship before it even took off for Kronos. He boarded the ship at the coordinates, just, not far from Earth or whatever.
And how did Kirk get those coordinates?
From Khan.
I don't know.
Khan knew about it. Yeah, Khan spouts out the numbers to him and says they're coordinates not far from Earth. And he's like, check for yourself. And Kirk gives the coordinates to Scotty and says, I don't know what you're looking for, but I have a feeling you'll know it when you see it. And we don't see it exactly yet either,
right.
But it's...
No, that's right. That's why Kirk wouldn't give Khan up. Khan told Kirk the Admiral's plan.
So they know that Marcus has an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
But they don't know exactly just how evil he is yet.
Right. I mean, he threatens to blow up the ship if he doesn't beam Khan over in 3 minutes.
Right. So maybe they do know exactly how evil Marcus is.
Scotty shut down the weapons on Admiral Marcus's ship.
Right.
So I think they had to go, or their repair time was like 3 minutes or something.
It was very short.
Yeah. Which 3 minutes definitely went by in the movie, I'm pretty sure. You've got Kirk and Khan going over to the ship.
Yeah, the space jump.
Right, the space jump.
Which is a pretty exciting scene. It's actually one of my favorite moments from the movie.
I liked it. The one thing that pulled me a little bit out of the movie, though, was when they go through and Scotty hits the button to close the door after he opens it. And then right when he hits the button to close the door, Kirk and Khan fall to the ground as if the button closing the door stopped them from flying.
That's true. The physics of it are a little strange.
That one kind of threw me off. So you've got Khan, Scotty, and Kirk now, and they're going through, and Khan gets separated from him.
Well, I like this moment because once they're on that ship, Kirk thinks that Khan is helping him, and Kirk kind of quickly realizes that
Yeah, and he actually makes a
Khan
statement.
has another idea. Right. And he even says to Sulu, I think it is, or no, it's Scotty, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
He says, as soon as we get to the bridge, stun Khan. And he's like, I'm pretty sure we're helping him. He's not helping us.
Right. Which turns out correct. Who gets there first, Khan? Yeah, Khan's taken out the entire bridge, I believe.
Just about, I think.
And then Kirk and Scotty come up, and he's like got the Admiral or getting ready to kill him or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Kirk intervenes and kind of fights against Khan.
Yeah, it just doesn't last very long because he ends up murdering Admiral Marcus. He gets stunned, but it doesn't keep him out for long. And so now that Admiral Marcus is out of the picture, Khan pretty much has control of that ship. Kirk, Scotty, and Carol all beam back to the Enterprise. And Khan tells the Enterprise that he wants those 72 torpedoes. And there's a little bit of... It's kind of a poker game. They both have poker faces, and they're not showing their cards, you know?
Actually, no, they didn't beam back over. He's having the conversation with Spock. He said he'll beam them back over if he gets the torpedoes.
I got you. Oh, okay, yeah. While Kirk and Scotty and Khan are on Marcus's ship, Spock makes a intergalactic phone call to himself, Spock Prime. And it was a cameo that was kept a secret, as far as I know. I didn't know it was coming.
Yeah,
it was a surprise to me. But I didn't like it.
Really?
Because, yeah, no. I mean, I like seeing Leonard Nimoy. That was
You know what? Yeah, you're right.
But I thought it was... I mean, I felt like they just wanted him to have another cameo.
Yeah.
And that was just the best place for it. But to me, it seemed like cheating for Spock to ask Spock Prime, like, how do we win? How do we defeat this guy? And it's not...
Are you sure he called Spock Prime? I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, yeah, he called him. Why would old Spock call young Spock? Be like, hey, just checking in. How you doing? You haven't called me in a while.
Anyway, he says he had run into Khan before.
He was the most dangerous adversary that they had ever encountered.
And this was before... Yeah, you're right. This was before they... This was during the Kirk, Scotty, and Khan scene on the Admiral ship.
The other ship, yeah.
Because he tells him he will not hesitate to kill everyone, every one of your crew.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts back, and then you know the danger of Khan.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. The only reason I liked that scene was because it was Leonard Nimoy.
Right. It's cool seeing the original Spock show up in these movies, but it was better in the first film. It was so much better in the first film, I thought, than in this one. And like I said, I just feel like they wanted to have him in another cameo. And it didn't even... I would much rather have had this crew figure out this problem on their own.
Yeah. Yeah,
than them call up this other Spock and be like, do you know who Khan is? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, how do we defeat him? And he's like, well, I promised myself I wouldn't tell you, but here's what you do. We don't ever hear the plan, so I don't know if he actually ever told him or not, but I mean, you could make a case that he doesn't tell them how to defeat him. But I think he told him how.
I think he kind of just gave him a red flag.
Well, I got the impression that he told him how he did it, which would have been... He probably told him about the whole Wrath of Khan story, which would have happened much later. Or maybe he told him about the Space Seed story. I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. But I got the impression that he gave him some information, and they used that information. Which is why, I'm assuming why Spock knew to take out the people from the torpedoes. They took out the cryogenic capsules, put them in the med bay area with
he knew
bones.
about the crew because Khan had told him how much the crew meant to him. And they knew that they were in the torpedoes.
Sure.
So I think that was
Like, see, and that makes sense to me. Like, why couldn't they just have had Spock figure that crap out on his own rather than having to? Because, like you said, like all the pieces were there, but it's not revealed that Spock took those capsules out or took the tubes out of the torpedoes until after he's had that conversation with Spock Prime.
And the way that he said, "You can have the torpedoes," to Khan, I knew something was up.
Once Khan has his torpedoes aboard his ship, he beams back Kirk and Scotty and Carol, and then he says no ship should go down without her captain. So he, has every intention of destroying the Enterprise.
So what happened? I'm trying to remember what happens after that.
After that,
because they go chasing him, don't they?
They end up firing. Oh, they end up blowing up the torpedoes. The torpedoes don't have the people in them anymore.
Right.
So
right,
once Khan starts firing on the Enterprise, they blow up the torpedoes, which pretty much kind of sends that ship out of commission. And then I think that's when the Enterprise starts falling towards the Earth. And that's when Kirk has to go into the warp core chamber to realign those two pieces, which is causing the warp core to not come back online.
And that was a scene I wasn't the biggest fan of.
The scene of him doing it, or just the fact that he had to do it?
That was fine. I didn't like how Scotty said, "You're not even going to make it to the core before you die."
Right.
And that was obviously not the case, not even close.
Yeah, he made it up there fine. Well, I wouldn't say fine. He coughed a little.
Right.
But
he was definitely not near death.
No, he was not.
Until he comes back.
Right. Yeah, even has time to wait on Spock to show up. And that's, all of this is because this was them kind of remaking Wrath of Khan. This is where the Wrath of Khan part comes into play.
Right.
Because in Wrath of Khan, and forgive me because it's been a while since I've seen Wrath of Khan, but I know that Spock has to go into a chamber and he's got radiation poisoning too. I don't know if it was a warp core chamber or not, but he had to do something to save the ship, and he ends up dying in the process.
Right. They do the hand-touching thing.
Right, exactly like they do in Wrath of Khan, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is, like, the roles have been reversed this time around. So this time it's Kirk in the chamber rather than Spock. And yeah, it felt a little forced to me, especially Spock yelling Khan, which was...
Right.
I feel like... I'm sure they had many conversations about this in, like, the writer's room or whatever, but... they're going to do a movie with Khan in it. It's like you feel like you almost have to have a character yelling Khan. And so rather than having it be Kirk this time, they'd have it as Spock, which doesn't seem to be forgive the term, but it doesn't seem to be the logical choice because he's this guy that usually does suppress his emotions and whatnot. And I actually did like the moment where Kirk asks him, how do you choose not to feel all the time? And he says, I don't know. And then he says, at the moment I'm failing. Like, that was actually kind of a nice little moment.
Did he? I thought he said it, at the moment I'm feeling.
No, he says I'm failing.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and, with the Wrath of Khan, there was a much... Does he do the scream after Spock dies?
No, he does it when it's...
When he gets stranded...
On the planet.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking. And there was a much better reason for that scream. They had a much deeper hatred for each other.
Right, and he was even talking to Khan, like, through the little radio or whatever. And so it's almost like he was screaming at Khan in the Wrath of Khan, rather than just going, just yelling out Khan's name on a ship where Khan is nowhere around.
Right. Yeah, I didn't like that.
It was a little forced.
Took me out of the movie.
And then after that, it goes into a bit of what a lot of blockbusters have a problem with, which, you know, a lot of people had a problem with Man of Steel. Granted, this might not be nearly as much destruction as Man of Steel had, but Khan flies that giant ship down into San Francisco and takes out a lot of buildings and whatnot, kills a lot of people.
That was an accident, though.
Well, he was headed for Starfleet, but that ship is so huge, he's going to take out other buildings, I'm sure. And he doesn't care.
He wasn't really aiming it anywhere. It just, I mean, like you said, he is going to Starfleet, but I don't think he was necessarily trying to hit the edge of San Francisco. Or anything.
I think he was trying to hit Starfleet, but doesn't really care. He doesn't really care who he takes out in the process.
Right.
But at least this movie recognized that, even if it's just one line of dialogue, which is one of the things that was a little absurd about Man of Steel, perhaps, is I wish not to talk about Man of Steel now, but I wish that one line in Man of Steel wasn't in there where after all the destruction is said and done, but it's right before the Zod fight, where that Jenny character is like, he saved us. I'm like, well, he saved you guys. You know, it's like the rest of the city. But in this movie, after all is said and done, Kirk is giving that speech, and he talks about honoring the lives that were lost nearly 1 year ago. So, like, that very final scene is 1 year after all this stuff has happened. And so they are at least acknowledging the fact that lives were lost in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of the pretty much the final action moment where Spock chases Khan throughout the city?
I didn't really like the space taxi or whatever you want to call it scene.
Right.
Where they were fighting on top of it.
I agree. When they're on foot on the streets of San Francisco, that wasn't bad.
Right.
But then they jump on this weird, flying thing.
Kind of felt new Star Wars.
Yeah, it sure kind of did. Yep. I didn't really think of that, but you're absolutely right.
Which kind of scares me now that we're talking about that. Because he's the next director.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't terrible.
No.
But it just felt...
I think it could have been okay if they had just finished it on like in the streets or something.
Yeah. You didn't have to be on this super fast speeding vehicle in the sky.
Right. Another problem I have is they ask if they can beam Khan and Spock back onto the ship. Because they've found out that we've skipped, a little small but fairly important moment where they find out that Khan's blood, it has the power to essentially resurrect the dead. It brought a dead Tribble back to life. And so since Kirk has died, they want Khan back on the ship so that they can use his blood to revive Kirk. And so I think somebody asked Bones, or somebody asked, can we beam him back onto the ship? And Chekhov says, they're moving too fast, I can't lock onto him. And I was like, what? Come on. Because in the previous film, he's able to lock onto Sulu and Kirk as they're falling to their death. And you'd think they're moving a lot faster than two guys running through a street.
Yeah.
So that I was like, Chekhov, you're just not even trying. Are you drunk? What's going on? Come on.
He's going to be the villain in the next one.
Right. He's really angry at Kirk for putting him in engineering, and so he's going to be... that would actually be hilarious.
I can't save him. Sorry. So, I want to talk about the blood. Why couldn't they just get a blood sample from one of the people in the pods?
That's what I thought Bones was going to do. Because as soon as he sees that dead Tribble come back to life, he goes, get me a cryo tube. And I thought he was going to just take the blood. Maybe you have to revive them in order to get the blood out. And he doesn't want to revive another Khan, essentially.
That's what I was thinking, because they did make this statement, can you, see what this one guy does. Imagine 72 other ones.
Right, exactly. So maybe in order to get blood out of... one of those people, they have to revive him. So, but the reason he gets a cryo tube is to put Kirk into it, so that he's, I guess, not more dead.
Right. That was just to stabilize his life, whatever was left, or I guess to keep his brain from from dying. I think they mentioned that.
Yeah, just to preserve his body how it is right then.
Right. And that kind of answers if, the revival thing, which, that was kind of what I was leaning towards. Kind of lame.
The Kirk revive being revived?
No. I'm talking about the fact that you have to have a revived person to use the blood.
Oh.
But
I don't know. I mean, that's what I thought they were going to do too, and then they didn't need Khan. But maybe once you take someone out of a cryo tube, they're immediately woken up or something. I don't know.
Sure. We'll just have to go with that. The people that haven't been revived, their blood is on hold.
Right. And that makes sense too, because they've at the end of the movie they freeze Khan.
Right. And they're not going to wake him back up.
Right. And so because I know that was a problem that some people had with the movie, is they basically cured death at the end of this movie. They're like, if you die, no problem, we got super blood, But if they can only use the blood if the person is awake, they're not going to revive Khan again to do it.
Right.
So this was like a one-time deal.
Yeah. You have to look at it that way to get around.
You have to. And I know people have a problem with that, but to me it was okay. I kind of almost wish that they had left Kirk dead until the next movie, because that's what they did with Spock. Which I think would have been maybe a little... I mean, Kirk is going to have to come back. You can't kill off Captain Kirk. But, well, unless it's Generations. But they didn't. They brought him back.
That was a different situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. So even knowing that he's going to come back in the next movie, I think it would have been maybe a little ballsier to leave him dead for the rest of this film.
Yeah.
But I understand why they did it. And it was okay. It just seemed a little too easy, perhaps, for them to revive him.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was okay. And it didn't take my enjoyment away from the movie. I really liked the movie, so.
Right. So, that's about it.
Yeah. What would you give this, what grade would you give it?
I give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. That's higher than I expected.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I'm leaning towards an A-, but you know what? I think after this conversation, I might give it a B+.
Yeah, I personally, I liked it better than the 09.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons that could be is because I've gone back and watched Star Trek and become a big Star Trek fan. And you mentioned to me that this is apparently rated the worst Star Trek movie ever made.
Yeah, well, there was a Star Trek convention. I can't remember if it was out here in Los Angeles or if it was in like Vegas or something. But at that convention, they asked all the fans to rate their favorite, just rate all the Star Trek movies from best to worst. And Galaxy Quest was actually in there as one of them, even though it's not officially a Star Trek movie. And surprisingly, Into Darkness made it as the bottom of the list. So according to those fans at the Star Trek convention, Into Darkness was the worst Star Trek movie ever made.
I don't get it.
I don't either. I think that's stupid. I mean, to me, the worst Star Trek movie is 5. I've only seen it once, but I remember thinking it was just terrible. But, I mean, I think it's a good movie.
I think it was just a statement of these people saying, we don't like your Star Trek, Abrams.
It could be. Very well could be. I don't know where the original landed on the list. Mm-hmm. But I know Wrath of Khan was number 1.
I felt that this one felt a little more like Star Trek than the first Abrams one did. I don't know if I could really give a reason. It felt like it wasn't as focused on the action. I mean, you had that at the end, but you had a lot of story going on for most of the movie. And it just felt like a Star Trek story.
Right. I can get that. I hope the third one is just as good as these two.
Yeah.
Especially
and it's exciting
that
they're going off now on their 5-year mission.
Right. I'd be curious. And it was fun to see Khan in this movie. And I'm pretty sure that the villain in the first movie was an original villain. He wasn't from the original series or anything, was he? Nero?
No, I don't know of him.
Yeah, so I was about to say I hope they go with an original villain in the third movie, but I guess they could, I don't know who it would be, but I guess they could do another villain from the original series and it could be okay. But But I don't.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
I'm with you. I want a new one.
Abrams probably isn't going to do it, is he?
He apparently has said he plans to.
Oh, okay. Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I really liked the way they ended it. You had the original Star Trek music when they're on the bridge.
Speaking of music, I've really grown to... I mean, I love the original Star Trek music, and I love that they incorporated it into the movie, especially at the end like that. But I really like the new Star Trek theme, like that you see over the opening credits and everything. Or not... Well, there's only just the title card, but... Like when you see the Paramount logo and you hear that music, I think that he's done a really good job with making this new while also connecting it to the old original series.
Mm-hmm. Who does the music?
Michael Giacchino, I think is his name. I think that's how. I know that's who it is, but I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Academy Award winner. He's cool too. He seems like a cool dude, just from interviews I've seen with him and stuff, and talking about how I think people were asking him if he was going to be offended if John Williams were to score Star Wars over, because Michael Giacchino's done everything for J.J. Abrams. He did the music for Lost. He's done the music for... I'm pretty sure he did the music for Fringe, that TV show. He did Mission Impossible 3. He did Star Trek. He did Super 8. So he's been right with J.J. Abrams through a lot of this stuff. And people asked him if he would be offended if John Williams were to do the score for Star Wars. And he was like, pfft. He's like, are you kidding me? He's like, you have to have John Williams.
Is that?
Yeah.
Who asked that question?
So
I am so happy John Williams is coming back.
Oh yeah,
to Star Wars.
You need John Williams to do the Star Wars movies.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see over the course of the next year. Info we get about the new Star Wars and everything. I guess the current rumor is the title is going to be A New Dawn, which I guess isn't a bad title.
Right. My coworker and I were actually talking about that right before they announced it, and we came up with Another Hope.
That's what you came up with?
Yeah.
Star Wars Episode 7, Another Hope?
Yeah. It kind of plays, it starts with the word A, and even though it's one word, another, if you were to separate it, you've got A, N, and then Hope. So it kind of sounds like A New Hope, Another Hope. They sound very similar.
Right. Well, what about A New Dawn? It's kind of the same thing.
It does, but, it sucks. No,
but you like yours better? Right.
I like mine better. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah. I haven't put much thought into the title. Once I see the official title, maybe then I'll...
Are you excited about it now?
About Star Wars?
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm not super excited about it yet, but once I start seeing some actual information, like when I start hearing about the cast, when I hear the official title, maybe when I start seeing some footage, then I'm sure I'll get excited. But as of right now, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I'm a little burnt out on Star Wars, which is funny because I haven't really watched them lately, and I think it's just because once the prequels came out, I feel like it was just nothing. George Lucas just kept trying to push Star Wars on everyone. So he had the Clone Wars TV show, and then he had, which I've heard is actually really good, and the Clone Wars animated movie, and then I just felt like there was just Star Wars everywhere.
I remember you saying too, you felt like the new trilogy took out the mystery of Darth Vader.
Well, the new trilogy, it's kind of the same thing with the Matrix sequels. The new trilogy just kind of took away this, not to sound super cheesy, but like the specialness of the original trilogy.
Sure.
It just kind of weakened them a little bit in my mind. And so, yeah, it just doesn't... I still love the original trilogy, don't get me wrong, but I just, over the course of, the past few years, I've just kind of become less and less of a Star Wars fan and more of a Star Trek fan.
I think I haven't lost my love for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nowhere near where I was, when I was 14.
Right.
I was huge into Star Wars. I knew names of races of creatures and everything.
Right.
But I am super stoked about this next trilogy, especially since we have no idea what it's going to be about.
Right. At least we had some idea. At least with the prequels, we knew that it was going to probably primarily focus around Anakin.
Sure, especially with the first one, you've got him as a boy.
Right.
It's the story of Anakin becoming Darth Vader.
Sure.
This one we have no clue.
I'm intrigued for sure. So yeah, I dismissed it when it was first announced. When they announced that Episode 7 was going to come out in 2015, I was like, I don't even care.
I did for about half a second,
just
because the bad taste of the new trilogy in my mouth.
Right.
But after that half a second I take that back. I was stoked. I was like, they're actually doing it.
Right.
Never thought.
I never thought it would happen either, actually.
Especially while Mark Hamill's still alive.
Mm-hmm. I remember, hearing about it, especially when the prequels were coming out, that Lucas had in mind an episode 7, 8, and 9, and that it was supposed to be 9 movies. But I never thought we would see him, especially with the movies did really well, I think, but with the backlash of kind of hatred towards the prequels, I never thought we would see 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that I wanted Mark Hamill to return as Luke Skywalker, and he's still at an okay age to do that. And I'm really excited.
I hope it's good. The fact that they hired Abrams is a good sign. You got Michael Arndt writing the script, so that's good. At least he's a good writer. As far as I know, he's never really written like an action movie, but he wrote Toy Story 3 and he wrote Little Miss Sunshine, which he won an Oscar for.
I have not seen Little Miss Sunshine, but Toy Story 3 was great.
Yeah, so he knows how to write a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we'll just, my fingers are crossed.
2015, a big year.
2015 is a huge year, man. Up until just recently, Pirates of the Caribbean was going to come out, which I don't really care about. But we've got Avengers 2, we've got Ant-Man, we've got Batman vs. Superman, which is not officially the title, but we've got Star Wars.
I think the 3 big ones that I was thinking of were Avengers 2, Batman, Superman, and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Those are Star Wars and Batman, Superman. That's going to be record breaking right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had Avengers 2 as well as the record breaking because the first one broke records. It was gigantic. I couldn't believe how big Avengers got.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the second one. I'm actually really looking forward to Iron Man 3 was good, if you haven't seen that one yet. Thor comes out in November, which I'm really looking forward to. And then Captain America 2, which I think is actually going to be a lot of fun, comes out next year. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of Marvel's movies that they've got coming out.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. It could have been bad. It was not bad by any means.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the what's his name, the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing with him. He looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in seeing that. But based on my excitement from the first one, it's really on the lower end.
I gotcha. I'm a fan of Captain America. I've always kind of been a fan of Captain America. And I enjoyed the first film. I didn't think it was awesome. I thought Thor was better, and I thought Iron Man 1 was better. But I liked the movie, and I really liked him in the Avengers. So I'm looking forward to seeing the second one.
Yeah. He was much better in the Avengers to me than his standalone.
Right. Well, if you agree or disagree with any of the things we've discussed, whether it be Star Trek, Star Wars, or superheroes, let us know. You can email us at justin@cinemaheroes.com or john@cinemaheroes.com. Or you can go to our website, cinemaheroes.com, and just leave us a comment. You can check out our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast. Or you can check us out on Twitter @CinemaHeroes.
Please talk to us.
Please.
We're lonely.
Oh, one of the things I've forgotten to say on these episodes is if you plan on making any Amazon.com purchases, check out Cinema Heroes first, cinemaheroes.com. We have an Amazon banner on there. You can click through that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but we get a really small piece of the pie. And, every little thing helps. We can put it towards our media host costs and other podcasting equipment costs. So we'd really appreciate it. I guess that's about it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.